please call the roll.
Chairman Blackwell,
Here.
Vice Chairman Matheny,
Here.
Member Cooper,
Here.
Member Askew,
Here.
Member Trace.
Here.
The first item on our agenda are the minutes from multiple meetings: November, May, June, August, October, November 19, December, March. Are there anyone here that needs to speak to those minutes, or could I have a motion for approval of the minutes?
Motion approved.
Second.
We have a motion from Councilmember Trace, second from Member Matheny. Madam Clerk, do we need to call the roll on this? Mr. Manzares?
No, you can do a voice vote on this.
Very good. Can all in favor say aye?
Aye.
Any opposed? And it carries unanimously. That brings us to item number 3, resolution number 2020-005R. And Amy, it's your opportunity.
Resolution number 2020-005R, a resolution of the Board of the Stevens Plantation Improvement Project Dependent Special District, authorizing the chairman, or in his absence, the vice chairman, to enter into an extension of the exclusive sale listing agreement for Stevens North, dated June 17th, 2019, between the Stevens Plantation Improvement Project Dependent Special District and Colliers International Central Florida, LLC, and providing an effective date.
Thank you. Who do we have to speak to this?
Good evening, board. This is Veronica Miller, Deputy City Manager. Colliers International has been the Stevens North listing agent since June 17th of 2019, and that contract was for 1 year. Stevens North is currently under contract with Avex Homes. This resolution will extend the listing agreement through June 16th of 2021 in the event that the current Stevens North property contract and closing are not finalized. Staff recommends approval.
Is the applicant here, and would he like to speak to this?
I have David Calcanis registered.
David, would you like to speak to this item?
Yes, Mayor. Councilman Blackwell, you know that we've done the best of our ability to perform and bring as many buyers as we can. Given the COVID-19 issue, is somewhat slowed us up just a little bit. I am still talking to a lot of different people on this property, including Eric Marks, the current buyer with Avex, trying to get this thing moved along.
Do you have anything else for us?
No, I don't. Ken, are you on the line with us? Ken Krasnow? I guess he's not. No, I don't. Mayor Blackwell.
Okay. Is there anyone registered in the audience or online in the public sector to speak to this item?
I do not have anyone in the chambers at this time or anyone else registered for this item.
Thank you. Then we'll open it up for discussion under motion by council or by the board. Do we have any discussion questions?
I think
Councilmember Matheny, I think you're first. Councilmember Matheny?
Me? Oh.
Yes.
Well, I think that Colliers International has done a great job. They've done what we've asked them to do. We have the property under contract. It makes no sense to me not to extend this to June of 2021 or whenever. It sounds like it's either when the property sells or June 2021 is the longest it goes. And then if we, if it closes, I mean, for me, it makes no sense to change horses at this point, and I'll let Mr. Trace
Thank you.
have his say.
Member Trace.
Oh, I was just going to make a motion. We've put these guys through the ringer, and I think they've done a great job.
All right.
Motion approved.
Second.
We have a motion from Councilmember Trace, a second from Member Matheny. Madam Clerk, will you please call the roll?
Vice Chair Matheny,
Aye.
Member Cooper,
Aye.
Member Askew,
Aye.
Member Trace,
Aye.
Chairman Blackwell.
Definitely an aye.
Motion carries 5-0.
Brings us to item number 4, Resolution 2020-006R. Ms. Daley.
Resolution number 2020-006R, a resolution of the Board of the Stevens Plantation Improvement Project Dependent Special District approving the Second Amendment to the agreement dated March 12, 2020 with Avex Homes, LLC for the sale of 142 plus or minus acres Stevens North property, amending and extending the inspection period, authorizing the chairman or vice chairman to execute the First Amendment and providing an effective date.
Thank you. Who do we have to speak to this item?
Mr. Mayor, I'll try to run you through this request from Avex Homes.
Thank you, Mr. Mazeros.
And so as the resolution stated and as the title is read, we're just going to clear up, there is a typo in the title. This is the Second Amendment proposed to this Avex Homes agreement that was entered into back in March of March. So the contract, as you all know, is on the north property, which is 143 acres. The sales price is $4,650,000. There's been one extension that was of the inspection period of 90 days. That the original inspection period was 90 days. That was extended by an additional 60 days back in June. And that's the First Amendment. We have recently received a request from Avex Homes to add an additional 60 days onto that inspection period, which essentially would extend the inspection period until October 7th of 2020. And the contract provides that the closing would occur 30 days after that. So that would in turn extend the closing date to about November 7th of 2020. Mr. Eric Marks is on the phone. He can explain to you the reasons why Avex is requesting this. We understand it essentially has to do with the issues related to the pandemic and financing and the markets that are out that are unexpected. So with that and the fact that there are no other, we don't have any backup contracts on this, staff's recommending that the Second Amendment be approved and that the extension be granted as requested by Avex. But I'll let Mr. Marks explain to you some of the reasoning behind it.
Mr. Marks, we welcome you to speak.
Hello, everybody. Thank you for giving us the opportunity. Can everybody hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay. Again, I appreciate the opportunity to ask for this extension. I will say that in March, this contract was signed. We, like everybody else, were a little shell-shocked by COVID, and that certainly set us back. We have since recovered from that. We've been going full speed ahead on this project, and we've probably spent about $40,000 in due diligence between phase one studies, some very detailed geotechnical evaluation, wetland delineations. We've actually done 2 wetland delineations. And probably the biggest undertaking has been maybe 10 iterations of concept plans. We've also had a formal meeting with your staff to go over our first concept plan. I think, if I'm being honest, we had a lot of work to do after that first staff meeting, and we've since followed up and revised the concept plan per those conversations and had follow-up meetings with your staff. Yesterday, we submitted the full application package for the concept plan. And as I understand it, the next board meeting that you have for this committee will be late September. So I'm sure there'll be some work back and forth between now and then with your staff, in addition to working on a development agreement that's largely outlined in our purchase agreement, but we've identified some things that I think we need to work through. I'd also note that, you know, in good faith, technically, because of the timing of this meeting, we have canceled the contract, but nonetheless, because we felt like the relationship with the city was working well and was so reliable, we've continued throughout that period to finish up our concept plans and continue on the what I would consider ordinary due diligence with third-party services for the inspection. So we're making great progress. Your staff now has a formal application for us for a concept plan. I hope we're very close on that, and I'm looking forward to presenting that with my fingers crossed, maybe even in person at some point between now and the next time we meet.
Very good. Madam Clerk, do we have anyone in the chamber or online to speak to this?
At this time, I have no one else in the chambers, but I also had David Kalkanis and Ken Krasno that had also registered to speak on this if needed.
Okay. Would either of you gentlemen like to speak?
I do not. David Kalkanis.
Mr. Kalkanis?
Yes, sir.
Did you say you wanted to speak?
No, I don't. The only reason I registered to speak is in the event that I needed to.
Okay, well, hang on if I have any questions.
Thank you.
And who else did you say was registered to speak?
Also, Ken Krasno.
Okay, Ken, are you there? Are you wanting to speak to this item? I don't see him.
And for to remember, Ken is a co-broker on this with Mr. Kalkanis.
Right. Well, then we'll open up for discussion and/or motion by council or the board. Any discussion? Any questions? Mr. Trace, Councilmember Trace.
Only question I have is new dates for closing on November 7th. Does that put us into paying that another round of taxes again, or is that all covered once we went to this new contract?
Who will speak? Mr. Manzares?
Well, if the closing occurs, then so it still should be that the city does not have to pay additional taxes on this property, and the taxes will be paid out of the closing.
All right.
Okay. And then I did see, and sorry I didn't bring this up to staff beforehand, I did see that there was a 5-acre piece of property that was city owned that was a part of this whole property when we were selling the city property and the DSD property. And then we decided to only sell the DSD property. So I didn't know what happened with that 5-acre piece, if that was to be included in this, or if that's in this sale, or if that's something the city had other plans for. Just wanted to bring that up.
If I may, Mr. Sturgeon, and that's a good question, Mr. Trace. Thank you for bringing it. Obviously, that property is owned by the city, so it's not a DSD issue, but it is an issue that we have preliminary discussions with AVEX and Mr. Marks about whether the city wanted to sell that property. I think as we were all moving forward with the process for the 143 acres, that kind of got put aside. I believe we certainly can talk to Mr. Marks if the council, if you're obviously the DSD board, but if that's something that the city council would consider, I think staff's preference would be that since the property is adjacent to this property, that 5 acres, that there be a separate contract with AVEX to buy that property, so that at least it would be part of their project, and then the city wouldn't have any obligation to deal with it moving forward.
Yeah, I didn't intend to muddy this with that. I'm fine with the extension. I just wanted to bring that up.
We certainly can work on that if that's the consensus of the council. And I think we can do that.
Member Cooper.
Thank you. We're still looking to keep the 43 acres. That's not on the table, right?
That's correct, sir.
I just want to make sure. Thank you.
Member Matheny.
I just wanted to tag into something that Mr. Trace just said. And I don't have a map in front of me, but in my mind, like when this 5-acre piece was described, I thought it was behind homes and it was purchased for a drainage problem. And now they're buying 143. So is this 5-acre piece, does it even have access? If they buy the 143, I don't know what it looks like, but I thought it was like tucked off behind, like maybe it's going to be sandwiched and there's no legal access. So that's something to look into as well.
Well, I only can tell you about it. We can look into that, but as I recall, that 5-acre piece, there actually was a residence on that property that the private owners that had it, there was a road, I think it's called Daley Road, actually provides access to that property. And I don't think that road is going away. So I do believe there's separate access to that.
Okay. In my mind, like how I had like envisioned that 5 acres, just make sure we're not cutting off access.
Sure.
Any other questions? Councilmember Askew.
I'm okay with the extension, and just, I guess, figure out what the 5 acres, what we're doing with that. But I'm okay with the extension.
Well, I am also. Would someone like to make a motion?
Motion to approve resolution 2020-06R.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion from Member Trace, a second from Member Cooper. Madam Clerk, will you call the roll?
Mayor, I think Eric Marks had wanted to speak.
Okay.
I'm not sure if he still does.
Eric, do you still want to speak before we vote on this?
No, thank you. I appreciate it.
All right. Madam Clerk, you call the roll then.
Member Cooper?
Aye.
Member Askew?
Aye.
Member Trace?
Aye.
Vice Chair Matheny?
Aye.
Chairman Blackwell?
Aye.
Motion carries 5-0.
Brings us to item number 5, resolution number 2020-007R. Ms. Daley.
Resolution number 5, resolution number 2020-007R, a resolution of the Board of the Stevens Plantation Improvement Project Dependent Special District approving an amendment to the agreement dated July 8th, 2019 with Alliance Realty Partners, LLC, with the sale of 10.86 plus or minus acres, Corpus Campus Tracts 8C, 9, and 10, amending, among other terms, and closing date authorizing the chairman or vice chairman to execute the First Amendment and providing an effective date.
Thank you. Who do we have to speak to this item?
I think I'll kick it off again, Mr. Mayor.
Mr. Manzares?
So if I could have the PowerPoint slide pulled up.
Okay.
Right, so as the resolution said, this is with regard to the corporate campus tracts 8C, 9, and 10, which is approximately 10 acres under contract with Alliance Realty for their multi-family apartment complex. The purchase price is $2 million. They've been working on this contract since July of 2019 and have done an extensive amount of work moving forward. In May, you might recall, the matter came back before the DSD board, and it was agreed that there would be a set closing date for September 1st of 2020. The Alliance, as indicated, has moved through the process. They've obtained, I believe, all the government approvals necessary for the project. We received a request from Alliance, and I believe Mr. Bobby Anderson is on the phone to talk with you about this, that due to the situation related to the pandemic, they would like to ask for an extension of the closing date till June 21st of 2021. During our discussions with them, we advised them that the problem with the June 2021 date is that the city would be in a position where, unlike in the ABEX situation, due to that extended closing date, the city would have to, or the DSD would have to pay the 2018 outstanding taxes on the property to avoid issuance of a tax deed on it. That amount is, it's a little over $71,000. So we went back to Alliance and we asked them, and they have offered to pay the 2018 taxes in exchange for this extension of the closing date to June 21st. That payment would be made to the DSD for the DSD to use to pay the taxes. It would not be a credit on the purchase price. In other words, at the closing, they would not get credit for the $71,000. However, it would be refundable in the event that the DSD defaults on the contract. In other words, backs out of the sale. In addition, this second amendment confirms that the current deposit of $150,000 that is on hand is a non-refundable deposit, except in the unlikely event that the DSD would default on the sale contract. So based on all those and the situation and the fact that the taxes would be paid so that the DSD wouldn't have to be in a position where it'd have to get money to come up with money to pay the 2018 taxes, staff recommends approval of the second amendment. And as I indicated, Mr. Anderson, I believe, is on the phone. He did submit a letter, which we submitted to you, I believe, the other day. So I think Mr. Anderson's available to speak with you.
Mr. Anderson, if you're available.
Mayor, Mr. Anderson had registered, but he is not, has not dialed in.
Oh, okay. I don't know. Is there anybody else here for Alliance?
I don't have anybody else registered for that.
Okay. Right. Well,
You have anything else, Mr. Manzares?
no, sir.
Well, I think we've all had the letter that they sent us. Is there anyone in the chamber or online to speak to this item?
Mayor, Mr. Anderson is now online, and Deputy City Manager Veronica Malellos has registered to sign to speak also.
Mr. Anderson, or if you're available,
Yeah, can you guys hear me now? Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, good. I was on the phone there, but apparently you guys couldn't hear me. Good evening, everybody. Yeah, I appreciate everyone taking the time to consider the proposed amendment. I did send you guys out the letter just to try to summarize everything that is happening. I hope you had a chance to take a look at that. Tonight, I'll try to be brief and just kind of keep it to the main points. Similar to what Dan has said, we have spent a lot of money on this property at this point. You know, I think we're $700,000 in. We pushed plans all the way through. Permits are ready to be picked up. All other needed entitlements and permits are ready. They were ready, and we were expecting to close at the original closing date. Unfortunately, COVID hit. Obviously, Osceola County is getting hit especially hard. And so that has been the reason for some of the delay. Is that so kind of my summary tonight is really 5 points. You know, the first point being that, you know, the unprecedented high unemployment rate and economic fallout from COVID-19 has caused construction lenders to put the pencil down on new projects in the area. Really, a lot of that is based upon the 22% unemployment that was in Osceola County. I saw as of Friday, I think the new figures are 20%. So it's going in the right direction, but still pretty high, especially compared to the rest of the state of Florida and across the nation. Second point is that, you know, due to COVID-19 and really because of the unemployment, the rents and the occupancies have declined at nearby apartments in the area. And this is really what's making it hard on lenders, is that you've got rents going down, you've got occupancy going down. So when they get into appraisals and trying to forecast future, you know, for what this loan size should be, or even when this market may recover, is, you know, it just makes it really, really tough to forecast lease up absorption, rents, and property values. Third point, there is some good news. You know, I especially probably within the last 2-3 weeks, we're starting to see a change now. You know, we are definitely seeing positive signs in the market, and we are hopeful that we will continue to see positive signs. We need some more additional positive signs. And then we're hopeful that that will bring the lenders off the sideline, and then they'll start to go and feel the same way they did about the greater Orlando area prior to COVID. Fourth point I got is that, you know, we truly believe that Alliance does offer you a quick path to closing in the current environment. As the largest apartment developer in the country, we have completed a lot of transactions with numerous lenders. And we are leaning on these relationships nationwide right now to try and get transactions closed as fast as possible. What we're finding, especially with the larger lenders, is that it is those groups that have those relationships that are able to get construction loans in this market. My fifth and last reason is, we really think there's a large need for this project in your community. The majority of the apartments in the St. Cloud are income restricted. And we feel that there are a number of people, probably a large number of people, who are renters by choice that would love to live in St. Cloud, but are forced to live in other neighboring areas due to lack of available non-income restricted options. And so, and in addition to that, this will be a $41 million project at the end of the day. So, there's also some added benefit to the amount of revenue that it's going to bring in through property taxes on a yearly basis. It's for these reasons that I'm hopeful that you guys will continue to work with us. I do want to clarify one thing that I didn't hear Dan say, is that although we're asking for the extended closing period, the amendment does require us to close when we find a construction lender. So, so if we found one tomorrow and could get them signed up in 60, 90 days, whatever, the contract does require us to close. We would not need the term that we're asking for. The reason we're asking for the term that we are is due to all the uncertainty and the fact that we're about to make a $72,000 payment for the taxes not applicable to the purchase price, that we just want to be absolutely sure that we will get this deal closed. So that being said, just a quick update on our search for debt. This is kind of something new that happened, and some of the positive news that I was telling you about earlier. Last week, we opened up conversations with a debt fund who has showed some interest in the deal. Their investment committee gave it an initial approval on Monday, and they are currently in their due diligence and working through the deal. Doesn't mean that they're committed to it at this point, but it is definitely a positive step that we haven't seen since Wells Fargo dropped the deal way back when. If they decide to commit to the deal, and we are hopeful that they will, then obviously what I was just telling you about with the amendment is that we would not need this long closing. And truthfully, if they told us that we had a term sheet tomorrow, we could probably get it done in 90 days, which is unfortunately just how long it's taken to get loan docs and everything put together right now. That being said, I appreciate everybody's time, and I'm happy to answer any other questions that you have.
Okay. Would anyone like to ask any questions while he is on the line here? Ms. Malalos, are you wanting to speak to this item?
Mr. Chairman, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Wonderful, and good evening, and thank you for allowing me to speak. Veronica Malolos, NAI RealVest. I'm one of two of the listing brokers for the DSD for corporate campus and retail. And I had a conversation with Mr. Anderson a few weeks back, and I just wanted to say that I concur with the facts that Mr. Anderson had presented to you. He is doing some good faith efforts in seeking financing for this project. And so I did recommend to the city attorney to add to the amendment that they would close as soon as they find financing, which they have agreed to. So that's good news for the DSD. And so Mr. Ben Crosby is also on the call, which is your second listing broker. But yes, we concur with the facts and the state of the capital markets with regards to the pandemic, and we do recommend approval of this application to extend.
Thank you. Mr. Crosby, are you wanting to speak to this item? Do you have anything new to add?
No, sir.
Madam Clerk, is there anyone in the chamber or online to speak to this item?
We have no one in the chamber and no one else online to speak on this item.
We'll have either further discussion and or motion by members of the board. Member Trace.
Personally, I'd like to see this get to the finish line here quickly. Really would like for something to happen in that area. We've had a lot of stops and starts on pretty much everything in the corporate campus. So I'm fine with like a 6-month extension, which would get to March 1st, 2021. That'd give 3 months to find another bank, another financing entity, and then 3 months to get closing docs put together, loan docs put together, and get that finalized.
Do we have any, Member Askew?
I'm okay with it. I don't know what that would do, changing the date that Mr. Trace is putting in there, but I truly appreciate that they're paying the taxes on this piece. So I'm okay with the date as long as the taxes are paid on.
Any other discussion? I'm certainly in favor of the date. I believe that's June, is it not? I don't think we need to complicate it. I think they're certainly doing their due diligence at this point and going the extra mile. Then I'd like to make a motion that we approve resolution number 2020-007 R as is stated here. Do I have a second?
Second.
We have a second from Member Cooper. Madam Clerk, will you please call the roll?
Member Askew?
Aye.
Member Trace?
Nay.
Vice Chair Matheny?
No.
Member Cooper?
Aye.
Chairman Blackwell?
Aye.
Motion carries 3-2.
Brings us to item number 6, resolution number 2020-008R. Madam Clerk.
Resolution number 2020-008R, a resolution of the Board of the Stevens Plantation Improvement Project Dependent Special District approving and accepting an agreement to sell Lot 5 of the Nolte Road Commercial Park of Stevens Plantation, approximately 1.38 acres of real property, to Compton Builders, Inc. for $280,000, and authorizing the chairman, or in his absence, the vice chairman, to execute the agreement and all documents necessary to complete the sale.
Thank you.
And again, Mr. Chairman, I'll kick it off on this discussion. I believe the prospective buyer as well as Veronica Malolis are on here. And Kelly, if you could go to the next slide first. Whoever's. There you go. Okay. So this is an offer that we have received through Veronica Malolis from Compton Builders to buy Lot 5 at the retail site, Nolte Commercial Center, and that's that crosshatched lot in the back, as shown on the screen, right next to the other properties that the DSD has sold. So we can go back to the other slide, please, Kel. Thank you. So essentially, this is the offer that's been presented. And this Lot 5 is 1.38 acres. The offer price is $280,000. There's a $15,000 deposit at contract signing, another $15,000 deposit at an inspection period that would expire 120 days after the effective date, and then a 30-day closing after that. The offer is submitted to you at $280,000, and you'll notice on the slide, staff has not made a recommendation. And the reason why is that we've always recognized that the lot 5 is one of the lots in the back, so it will have a different purchase price, or at least will have an ability to gain a lower purchase price than some of the other lots. In fact, we're going to talk about lot 2 next, and the purchase price on lot 2 is $475,000. But so the problem, staff's issue with making a recommendation on this is that $280,000, the numbers are very close as to whether all of the items that have to be paid out of the closing proceeds would be fully paid by the purchase price. We believe a better number is $285,000 as opposed to 280, because that will ensure that the DSD, that all the assessments, the taxes, and all that, and the B assessments on the property, as well as the, as you might recall, there's an assessment that the city is entitled to receive payment of. All of that would be paid out of the closing proceeds. At 280,000, the numbers are a little close when you add back in the real estate commissions, the closing costs, and all that stuff. So the LOI was submitted at, the latest LOI was submitted at 280. Veronica Melois is on this, and she will tell you that she has worked very hard on this, and she has, her and Ben have worked very hard with the prospective buyer. The original LOI came in at 200,000, so they've done very well to get it to the level that it is. But we wanted to present it to the DSD board because it is an offer. We'd like Veronica to talk a little bit more about what she feels the market will bear for this particular lot, and then, but from a staff recommendation perspective, we think the number at 285,000 is the better number to sell the property if it is sustainable. With that, I think, Mr. Chairman, you may want to hear it from Veronica Melois, and then maybe Mr. Compton.
All right, Ms. Malalos.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Mr. City Attorney, I'm sorry. I wanted to let everyone know that Mr. Compton, the buyer, who's represented by Latitude 28 Realty, is on the call. And just like Mr. Manzares had mentioned, I really tried to get him up to 300,000, which is our list price. And when we're talking about what the market will bear, now we've talked several times about the fact that these lots 4 and 5 are the back lots. We call them second row lots, and so they don't have frontage. And it's an interior lot that's further from, for instance, the exposure of the parking lot of the Walmart neighborhood market store. And you all know that the value of a property is really what a seller is willing to sell and what a buyer is willing to pay for. And so at this point, the offer of Mr. Compton is 280,000. I would say that 285,000 is a very reasonable counter offer. So I would like to ask Mr. Compton what his thoughts are, since he is on the call, and I believe he's registered.
Mr. Compton, are you available?
I am here. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Well, thank you, Mr. Mayor, for hearing me and the whole committee there. And I'd like to say happy birthday to you, sir.
Well, thank you very much.
You stole my thunder.
Yeah, and I thought you were going to start with the other lot first. We are struggling right now, and I know everybody else before me has brought up the whole COVID.
Are you still there?
Yes, I'm here. I'm here. Can you hear me? Hello?
I think we may have
lost him temporarily, hopefully.
No, Mayor, can we hear you? Can you hear us, Mayor?
I can hear you. I can't hear Mr. Compton.
I'm here.
There you are.
Hello? Hello?
I can hear you. Can you hear us?
There we go. All right. Yeah, you're kind of dropping in and out. My big struggle is the financing. We have lost our financing on the lot in front of this, as well as tenants. We are working hard to get them put back together. The only way we would move forward is to make it contingent on financing. But if we can agree on price, probably within 30 days, I could give you the contract and move on from there. We have, I guess it's too early to bring up the other lot, but we do have a letter of intent from daycare facility for the back lot. We're still trying to figure out if it will fit on that lot or if we're going to need more room. So that's kind of my dilemma in the next couple of days to get that figured out.
Okay. Do you have anything else?
No, that's pretty much it.
Are any of the members wanting to speak to this item at this point?
I will.
Sorry, I saw Mr. Trace. I just
Ladies first.
Go ahead, Keith.
I was just going to ask, so on our sheet for this item, it shows Hutton Realty LOI on lot 1. Is that still progressing?
No, sir. And I noticed that when the PowerPoint came out, we had anticipated that might be one of your agenda items tonight, so they were included on that map. But as Ms. Malolos informed us that they've withdrawn their offer for that one.
Okay.
Yeah, I think over the next couple months, if not year, some of these retail parcels are going to be quite difficult to sell unless people are thinking outside the box with other items that they can do. I really think that either 1 and 4 need to sell together, or 4 and 5 need to sell together, so we're not left with this remnant kind of in the back. And it doesn't seem like, Mr. Compton, we're always, this property will be here, and I don't know if there was a lot of push for this at the moment. So, if you get a viable offer, I think, the property will still be here, but I think it'd be great for 4 and 5 to go together at the same time.
Member Matheny.
Thank you. Can you put the map back up? So
Okay.
which Mr. Manzares, which one were you just saying was not moving forward?
Lot 1, where it says Hutton Realty, that was the one where they proposed to put a car wash facility on it.
Mm.
And
Go ahead.
And they had approached us. They approached Mr. Malolos, and then we had a conversation with them several weeks ago about how they were still interested and they wanted to repurpose their presentation and bring it back. And then they just recently advised us that they were withdrawing their offer.
Have we made any progress with getting the easements off of there and moving the sidewalk and things we talked about before on lot 1?
I believe the city staff, or maybe Veronica or Mr. Brew can address that. I think they're on the call. Some of the staff may be able to address that better than I can.
Is there someone on staff to speak to that?
Yes, hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Hey, yes, Abismael Abreu. I'm the business navigator for the city and also the project manager on this easement vacation. So just to give the DSD a little bit of an update, we have been actively working on this. We had a pre-application meeting, as it is customarily before any DRC application comes forward for city staff to get together with the applicant being the city in this instance, to discuss the DRC process, in which meeting it was discovered that a utility box is presently located within that easement. Further investigation of the utility box and the easement, the city found out that that easement and that utility box belongs to CenturyLink, and they're actively using, they have an easement agreement that dates back to 2004. In conversation that I've had with representative for CenturyLink, I have emails of them saying that that is one of their unmovable boxes, and the city will have to pretty much take the financial responsibility of moving that box and whatever wires is underneath on the ground there, to which we're trying to figure out what's the best course of action moving forward to avoid any more financial implications, since it's kind of a dilemma right now. So how do we maintain access to that easement, to that utility box within that easement once we abandon it? Currently, CenturyLink is working with a surveyor trying to provide the city with a sketch of specifically where those utility wiring underneath that easement and underneath that box, and where do they go to, so that we can have a visual of it. That way we can move forward and find a solution for this little issue that we found there later on. So that's as far as the easement, and that's the update that we have. And as far as the sidewalk, there's also a large berm that runs in front of the property there that makes the engineering a little bit difficult for the redesigning of the sidewalk. So that's still being discussed with engineering and see how the cost for the city as well for maybe a curve cut to allow vehicle entrance and over that berm, and how we can redesign around it. So that's the update that we have. Right now, we're still working on the sidewalks and actively working on the easement vacation, trying to find the most possible solution for it.
Okay.
Number three.
I guess, I don't know. I'm torn on this request personally. I get what council member or DSC board member Trace is saying. Does it make more sense to sell 4 and 5 together, or should 1 and 4 and 2 and 5 go together? I don't know. I mean, the layout that we had from lot number 2 from Compton Builders was they were going to build a road between 1 and 2 that would go back to serve 4 and 5. So that was supposed to help with that access issue. So I'm really torn on this one myself.
Any other council input? Yeah, this is a tough one. It's not like we have a lot of offers on the board.
Well, Mr. Mayor, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir.
One suggestion is that since there aren't a lot of offers on the table, and maybe Mr. Crosby and Ms. Malolos can talk about what the market is showing now, but you could extend for this lot, at least, extend to have a further extension period to allow for maybe some more issues to be worked out, to decide whether there is a better course to address it. So that Mr. Compton mentioned some issues with regard to financing, given the pandemic. You have some issues when we talk about the next item on lot 2, some issues related to the easement and the access points and the sidewalk and all that. So maybe a longer due diligence period might be better for both parties, so that they can figure out exactly where the situation is and at least get the property under contract.
Ms. Malolos, are you wanting to speak to this?
Yes, only to say that I've spoken in the past about market conditions, and now with the expiration of PPE, there is a movement, or at least some conversation about the fact that commercial real estate is going to be severely impacted once the retail tenants, office tenants are going to have to bear the cost of continued leasing. It's going to affect the overall market as far as the ability of retail and office tenants to go back in the market for expansion purposes. As a matter of fact, we're going to see a lot of footprints shrink because of the pandemic. And so all I can say is that we don't have a crystal ball at this time. All we know is that at least, and Mr. Crosby is on the call, and he can talk a little bit more to this. All we see right now are a lot of the landlords that are trying their best to keep up with leasing. And as we see more vacancy and and hopefully that's not what we see, but that's the trend that we're at least hearing about, then less and less of those office and retail prospects are going to be in the market. But that being said, on the flip side of that, we are seeing small shop retailers also actively in the market, mostly in the 192 corridor because of traffic counts. So I recently received an inquiry on one of the lots, which is where you see this diagram that says Kid City USA, which is owned by Joyce Development Group. So they own 6 and 7. And where it actually says 6 and Kid City USA, that deal did not work out. That's the reason why they are not going to move forward with that daycare on lot 6. I did get an inquiry with regards to a hardware store that Joyce is trying to get into lot 6. However, they are not, because of the distance between Ace Hardware, which is 3.5 miles out away on 192 or 13th Street, then that is possibly not going to happen either. So I guess my whole point of bringing that up is just to say that there are small shop retailers out there that are in the market. However, it gets slimmer and slimmer pickings, if I may say that. And Mr. Crosby, Ben, are you on the call?
Mr. Crosby?
Yes, I'm here.
Would you like to speak to this item?
Well, I would only offer in support of Veronica. In the last couple of months, listening to economists and bankers from around the country, the estimates are that as much as 30 to 40% of retailers will not survive by the time this is over. And a member of the Federal Reserve Bank of Atlanta, a few weeks ago, I was attending a meeting he was at and discussing that there's also a lot of things hidden right now. Hospitality, the tourist industry, a lot of retailers as well as residential people are on deferrals, are not making payments at all at the banks. And that's probably one of the reasons we heard earlier from Alliance about their ability to get financing for their project right now. A lot of people are trying to figure out where they stand. And I think this is going to be a problem. And it just seems to me, if we have somebody like Mr. Compton, who's local and got a good reputation, and if he is continuing to work and plow through and thinks he has demand, I just think we might be smart to continue to work with him. If he can get it built, it's going to be nothing but good for business in that shopping center, because it's certainly struggled, as you know.
Mm-hmm. Do we have any other questions from the board? Member Trace.
Yeah, and I hear this. I'm hearing a lot of the same things that Veronica was mentioning, and the only thing I would add to that is there's a lot of other groups that are adding drive-throughs, drive-through pickup lanes to all types of businesses that are looking at doing that. So, kind of master planning out a couple of these parcels together to make sure that we can have flow for that to make sense. I think I remember Mr. Compton brought his site plan forward before that had kind of a shoehorned drive-through in there to make that work. So I think just us thinking about all of this collectively, these remaining 4 parcels, to make sure that can function together to where we can get all these built and open.
Mr. Chairman, if I can add, I just wanted to talk a little bit to the idea of selling 4 and 5 together, or 1 and 4 and 2 and 5. Now,
Okay.
at this particular junction, you're seeing actually Mr. Compton or Compton Builders making an offer to purchase both 2 and 5. So that would make a little bit. It kind of speaks to the idea earlier. But if you were to consider selling 4 and 5 together, that could take a lot longer than you would if you sold 5. Because right now you have an offer on the table. Now, that being said, could there be someone who would want to go in a larger piece of property in the back row? Possibly, but it's probably unlikely.
Right.
But I don't have a crystal ball, so I can't say that. All I'm saying is bird in the hand versus 2 in the bush. That's
Right.
just, it's a good idea, but if you consider 2 and 5 being bought by Compton Builders, I think it speaks to that idea also.
Member Matheny.
Thank you. I heard this one time, somebody was complaining to me in the city, and I don't know if this is true or not. I liked what Mr. Trace was just saying about the drive-throughs, especially like in the new world order we have here. Drive-throughs would be fantastic. Do we have like exorbitantly high impact fees for drive-through facilities? Because that's a complaint I heard from businesses was like, oh, I'd love to put a drive-through, but the impact fees. Or do we have some exorbitant fee on drive-throughs, and is that something we should look at to try to make maybe some of these parcels work better? I know it's more of a city question.
Mr. Manteris.
I don't know if there's anybody available on the call that can answer. We can certainly look into that and address it.
Just thinking if that is the case, which that's the complaint I heard from businesses, maybe that's something we could do to try to help spur some commercial development as well.
Any other discussion? Mr. Trace.
Just one point of clarification on the contract. To do section 13.0 and 14, I think it was 13.0. There was something about the contract automatically terminates if we don't have the offsite improvements done by September 30th or 30 days out. There's some weird thing in there to where it would actually automatically terminate before we're actually getting the offsite improvements done. It was like 30 days out from executing the contract, we had to have the driveway and water and wastewater improvements done.
I appreciate it. We'll have to clean that up in terms of the contract and make it consistent with the contract for lot 2.
Yeah, if we can just make it October 30th, like I think you modified on lot 2. That'd be fine.
That would be the proposal for lot 2, yes, sir. So we can do that.
Yeah, and I'm fine with the 280,000. If Mr. Compton can find folks if you can build something on there for some tenants, that'd be great. My whole comment about 4 and 5 together was based on, I thought 1 had an LOI on it. So now I guess if we can market 1 and 4 together, if 2 and 5 are being sold to the same buyer. So I'd like to make a motion to approve resolution 2020-08R with making a couple updates to the contract.
Second.
We have a motion from member Trace, second from member Matheny. Madam Clerk, will you please call the roll?
Member Trace?
Aye.
Vice Chair Matheny?
Aye.
Member Cooper?
Aye.
Member Askew?
Aye.
Chair Blackwell?
Aye.
Motion carries 5-0.
That brings us to item number 7, resolution number 2020-009R. Madam Clerk.
Resolution number 2020-009R, a resolution of the Board of the Stevens Plantation Improvement Project Dependent Special District approving and accepting a second amendment to to that certain agreement to sell Lot 2 of the Nolte Road Commercial Park of Stevens Plantation, approximately 1.52 acres of real property, to Compton Builders Incorporated, dated November 18th, 2019, and authorizing the chairman, or in his absence, the vice chairman, to execute the Second Amendment and all documents necessary to complete the sale.
Mr. Manzares, you going to speak to this?
Yes, sir. I'll start it off again. So this is the contract for Lot 2, which, as was stated in the resolution, was entered into November 18th of 2020. I'm sorry, that should be 2019. The purchase price, as I indicated, was $475,000, 1.52 acre parcel. The item is before you because the prospective buyer, Compton Builders, has asked for the closing date to be extended by, I think his request actually was to be extended by at least 60 days. He's on the call, obviously, and so is Veronica Malolos and Ben Crosby, the listing agents on this property, and they can speak to the issues associated with that. As Mr. Trace pointed out when we were talking about the other item, the original contract had a date of September 30th to complete certain cellar improvements related to the utilities and the completion of the internal drive that runs to serve these properties at the rear of Lot 2. And that work is currently underway. It is anticipated to be still on track to be completed by September 30th. But given the fact that the improvements are tied to the closing date and the buyer has requested that the closing date be extended, the amendment before you is, as proposed by staff, extends the closing date for a period of 60 days to November 2nd, and also has a corresponding extension of the date from September 30th to October 30th to complete those cellar improvements. Given the situation and what we understand is going on with the pandemic and marketing of these properties by the developers, staff recommends approval of the Second Amendment as presented. And as I indicated, Mr. Compton, Mrs. Malolos, Mr. Crosby are all here to speak on this issue too.
Who would like to speak first? Ms. Malolos.
I was going to ask Mr. Compton to speak first as he...
Okay. Mr. Compton, are you still here? Mr. Compton, you're here, but you're muted.
Okay.
There you go.
Okay. Yeah, a couple of things that it might have been a misrepresentation on my part or someone else's, but we were asking for an extension of everything, not just the contract date, but the due diligence date, everything. We have lost the financing, of course, but I met with one banker today. It's hopeful. Veronica is working with our one tenant that we lost, our big one. I believe she's meeting with him tomorrow. So we're just up in the air. We've already spent $35,000 complete with engineering and surveys, everything. So I'm hesitant to throw another $15,000 at it before the election. I don't know what to say. I'm just a little beside myself with the whole thing, losing tenants and financing. I think we'll pull it out of the hat, though. We'll get it done. It's just going to take a little bit of time. But we really do need the right in and right out onto Nolte, and I believe that will help your car wash man on the corner.
Mr. Chairman, just so we can make sure we do it, and I apologize, it was communicated to me that the only request was to extend the closing date. So Mr. Compton, what if you could just make sure we clearly understand your request would be to extend the existing due diligence inspection period and the corresponding closing date. So how long of an extension are you looking for on the inspection period?
Good question.
Thank you.
I really would love to be able to close this thing by the end of the year. I think it would be to everybody's benefit. Maybe just another 45 days. I think we'll have our financing in the bag by then. But if you could do that, that would be a big help. They do seem like things are picking up. I think you guys are aware that we have a large contract catty corner to the Walmart. We have had a lot of interest on that project. So I'm really excited about the Nolte Road project. I mean, it's going to be a fantastic development when it's all done. I think you guys have done a great job.
Do you have anything else to add, Mr. Compton?
No, I think I'm good. I'm at your mercy.
Ms. Malalos, are you wanting to speak to this item now?
Yes, only to say that his anchor tenant, who is a restaurant, larger footprint with outdoor seating, which is, of course, right now suffering through the pandemic and is not getting the revenues that they need to be able to even think about expansion. And this is just one example of how a prospective tenant who we would have already signed for that project, just because of the pandemic, has really just became so very nervous about not just his existing business, but moving into a larger space. And they were super excited about being on Nolte Road. But right now, and I have a meeting I'm going to visit tomorrow, and I hope to get sort of the temperature. But I'll tell you, honestly, I think that I'm not expecting them to be jumping up and down when they see me tomorrow. Just because of the restaurant business is really just not doing well right now. I don't believe that if they are 50% capacity, which is by state, by state guidelines, it's really hard to stay afloat or to become even profitable. They are doing business through DoorDash and Uber Eats, but it's just not enough to make that decision to move forward with an expansion. And their plan was really to be the one restaurant that was going to serve alcohol. Because as you remember, one of the restrictions of the Walmart neighborhood market store is that they will allow only one establishment to offer alcohol in the park. And they would have been the one. So at this time, I really cannot guarantee to Mr. Compton that we would be able to see this lease come through. I will definitely do my very best. But again, no crystal ball. And that's really all I wanted to share at this time.
Before going further, Madam Clerk, was there anyone in the chamber to speak to either of these items? Number 6 that I forgot to ask for public comment on. And
we don't have anyone in the chamber at this time.
Thank you. Thank you. Do we have discussion and or motion by council or by our board rather? No discussion. I'm sorry, Mr. Trace. I didn't see your hand there.
What was the requested inspection period date?
Well, and if I may, Mr. Compton can correct me if I'm wrong. Based on the question I asked him, I think he was asking for a 45-day extension of the inspection period, which if you worked off of today's date, that would extend until October 15th. And then a closing would happen under the terms of the contract would be 30 days thereafter. So it would basically be the amendment would extend if you would go with extend it to October 15th, the inspection period, He wouldn't have to put up the additional deposit, which is what he referenced, and the closing would be 30 days thereafter, assuming he did not terminate by October 15th.
Okay, so how about revise the contract for a October 30th end of inspection period and December 18th closing date? I'd like to make a motion for those 2 dates, plus revising the dates for the city to finish the offsite improvements.
I'll second.
We have a motion from Member Trace, a second from Member Askew. Member Matheny, you have something you'd like to add?
Yeah, I don't have a problem with the motion. I just wanted to make sure that that doesn't have tax implications to us, like pushing those closing dates out.
No, ma'am, it shouldn't. As long as so for purposes of the taxes, the issue comes into play in March. And so as long as you can get these parcels closed by March, it won't change the current situation you're in.
Member Cooper, do you have a?
No, sir, I was just ready to vote.
Okay. We have a motion and a second. Madam Clerk, you call the roll.
Okay, I just want to clarify the dates for the record. That was 10:30 for the inspection and 12:18 for closing date.
That's correct.
And the stellar improvements by 10:30 also?
Correct.
Yes.
Okay.
Vice Chair Matheny,
Aye.
Member Cooper,
Aye.
Member Askew,
Aye.
Member Trace,
Is that a yes, Mr. Trace?
Aye.
Chair Blackwell.
Aye.
Motion carries 5-0.
Good luck, Mr. Compton.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it. Have a good evening.
Brings us to item number 8, resolution number 2020-010R.
Resolution number 2020-010R, a resolution of the Board of the Stevens Plantation Improvement Project Dependent Special District approving and accepting a second amendment to that certain agreement dated December 8th, 2017 to sell Tract 4 and 5, Stevens Plantation Corporate Campus, approximately 4 acres of real property to Madison Grove LLC for $1 million, and authorizing the chairman to execute this second amendment and all documents necessary to complete the sale.
Thank you, Mr. Manzares.
Thank you. Thank you. So you're all familiar, you should be familiar with the Madison Grove project. I can show the map if you want to see it, or we can just see it on the next slide. But as you know, originally, it goes back even further, but most recently, Madison Grove LLC was under contract with the DSD to buy tracts 5 and 6 at the corporate campus, which is about 4.3 acres for $1 million. There were some financing contingencies tied to that related to the tax credits available through the Florida Housing Finance Corporation. That contract allowed Madison the opportunity to go through 3 cycles of applications to obtain those tax credit allocations. And for each time that they went through that process, Madison would basically pay the outstanding assessments on the properties to the DSD, which they did during the course of it. Their last cycle, they were not awarded the tax credit allocations, and based on the last cycle that was afforded under that contract. So essentially that contract is now expired. They've circled back with us now, and they've asked to present to the board the option of reinstating that contract for 1 more year so that they could go through the cycle again to try to apply for those tax credits. While we've been working on this, Veronica Malolis and Mr. Crosby received a interest from another prospective purchaser of property for an assisted living facility, who was also interested in buying Tract 6. And for discussions on Ms. Malolis, and again, she's on the call and she can explain how that transpired. But it became evident to the staff, Ms. Maloas, and to Mr. Crosby, that there might be an opportunity for the city, for the DSD, I'm sorry, to package or at least to get tracks 4, 5, 6, and 8A under contract, which are the remaining properties in the corporate campus. So with that, Veronica Maloas circled back with the representatives in Madison Grove and asked them if they would their reinstatement request could be revised to, instead of reinstating it for tracks 5 and 6, they would reinstate it for tracks 4 and 5, which is about 4 acres. This option would give the city, the district, the option to potentially market tracks 6 and 8A to these prospective buyers. We were hoping that we might have some more information on those prospective buyers or buyer for you tonight, but that has not moved forward to the point where we could present it. Although Mrs. Maloas can explain to you how she feels, that we anticipate that there would be some letters of intent offered on those in the near future, and you might very well see them at your next meeting. So what it boils down to is Madison Grove's offer today is to reinstate the contract under the similar terms related to their ability to apply for one more cycle related to the tax credit allocations. However, the property would be, instead of tracks 5 and 6, it would be tracks 4 and 5. The purchase price would remain the same as $1 million, and they would pay the upcoming tax and assessment on the tracks. So if they're approved and they get their financing, they would close on or before June 30th of 2021, again at the $1 million price. Staff is recommending approval of this reinstatement amendment of the contract. As you recall from the last transaction involving Madison, there's a local government loan contribution that they believe is part of the agreement that enhances their ability to get this tax credit allocation, and that would be part of it. That is a city council decision. So we obviously can't make that decision tonight, but I believe the representatives of Madison Grove are here to explain to you how that has changed and to address it tonight, even though you will not be voting on that piece of it all. That'll have to come back to the city council in the appropriate agreements the way it did last time. So with that, that's essentially the summary of the deal. If we can go to the next slide, Kelly. And so you can see that's where the project would be moved to from 5 and 6 to 4 and 5, and essentially would be the same project. So with that, I believe Stacy Bannock and Mike Oliver on the call, as well as Veronica Maloas, and available to provide any further information. And I believe that Mr. Bannock and Mr. Oliver have a presentation that they'd like to present to you.
Mr. Bannock?
Yes, hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Great, good evening. I'd like to say we're back. And this request, actually, you'll be delighted to know, has nothing to do with COVID-19. I feel like everyone's been doing that. You know, our project's a little bit different, and what we're trying to do is different. So anyway, I don't have to even mention those words again throughout my speech here. This is, as Dan had mentioned, this is basically a two-step request. You know, but first, you know, if we don't have a amendment to the contract reinstatement, then we don't proceed to the next request. If we do, then we will be over to the next city council meeting, whenever that is, and we'll present our request for that. As Dan mentioned, the history of our project, we have been actively pursuing tax credits for this project since 2016. You know, we have had successful, as far as an application, a standing of an application every year. We have an application that goes through quite a rigorous screening. We passed that test. We have just, you know, been unfortunate on the lottery number. The first few years, it really was a tough shot. Although we, you know, were able to get projects in other municipalities, it just comes down to luck. This one, last year, and even more so this year, the Florida Housing has been changing the rules, and, you know, it increases our odds. Last year, because we were able to, you know, the city council was able to give us the local contribution, it increased our odds, you know, 20 full. Basically, we had there were a total of 23 applications, and they were filling 4 spots. This year, Florida Housing says, hey, if whoever had submitted last year and had the local contribution, we're going to have 3 applications this year for those spots. Last year, there were a total of 14 left. So this year, our odds are going to be, 1 application out of 14. It's going to be the best odds we've ever seen in Median County. We're going to do everything we can do to convince you to proceed with us because again, it's the best odds we've had, and we really do want to try again. One thing just to remember that this is a lot different than us trying to secure financing with an equity partner. It's getting tax credits from the state, and once we have an allocation, we will 100% move forward. We did win 3 allocations last year between large county and medium county. 2 of them were in the large counties, Orlando and Hillsborough. Orlando, we have already closed. We received our award of allocation in April, and we've already closed, and we're 1 month into construction. So once we do get an allocation, we move very quickly. Tampa, we're in permitting right now. We're expected to close on October 1st, and our 3rd one's in Cape Coral, where we expect to close on that one January 15th. So, it's again, I'm just trying to kind of make it obvious to you that it has nothing to do with us as a development company. In fact, we're very successful. It has been, unfortunately, for the St. Cloud project, Madison Grove. It's just we haven't had the luck. So we feel like we're due. I heard the word crystal ball. I wish I had one, but we're going to do our best to try and submit an application and see if we can get it this year to provide more, affordable housing. There's no affordable senior housing done through the Florida Housing Finance Corporation in St. Cloud, and we'd like to be the first one to bring it to St. Cloud. I can go over, I do have a slide. I can go over this. I can do it at City Council's meeting as well if we get there, and kind of go over our project and refamiliarize you with what we do and what this project is. We have changed 3 times at the request of the DSD and city. We went from Stevens Plantation North at the request of the city. We moved over here to the corporate campus. We have moved sites twice. We have combined sites. Last year we were asked to just go ahead and combine the sites into one bulk price, and we did that. And then again this year we were asked if we could move, and we are doing that. So we're doing everything we can do. We're paying our carrying costs on the project, so the city doesn't have to, and we'll do it again this year. If there's any questions, I can answer them for you, or I can go over more information. But I'll leave them in your hands.
Thank you, Mr. Bannock. Does Mr. Oliver, do you have anything new to add?
The only thing I would add is, Stacy mentioned that our competition this year will be 14 applications. That is if all of those local governments do come back to the table with the contribution for their applicants. It could be less, but let's assume it's 14. And there are 3 allocations allotted for those 14. I think Stacy said, so we have a 1 in 14 chance. So it's a 1 in 14 chance, but with 3 opportunities. So it's really 3 out of 14. It's the odds are about a little better than 20%.
Thank you. Mr. Member Askew,
Yeah, I guess I'm a little confused. I know we were helping them with some financing. Is the financing changed at all for this particular project?
Mr. Askew, you're talking about the local contribution piece?
Right.
Yeah, and it has, and I think that's one of the things that I don't. If you could, maybe Stacy or Mike, can you go through it? You might as well bring it up. And I think it's page 34 of the PowerPoint, Kelly. If you can pull that up real quick.
This is Stacy. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so yeah, there's been, so if we're gonna go there tonight, just to kind of give you a preview of what we'd be asking for at the city council meeting, basically the requirements are Florida Housing has made some changes. Last year we requested 560,250. They have lowered it to 460,000. So you know that helps out, I believe, a little bit. The other thing that Florida Housing has done is, you know, we, as a development company for affordable housing, we don't, and I've expressed this before, and you know, for the tax credits we get for what we build, we don't need, this isn't money that we need for financing to make the project move forward. It's only to increase our odds to get the project. And as part of that, Florida Housing has, you know, last year we were proposing to pay back the loan, I think, you know, within 6 months. It was a very quick turnaround, and we could do that, but Florida Housing is not letting us do that. So our request is going to have to change to be a part of the permanent financing for this project, and they're requiring a minimum for 22 years. So it would be a long-term loan payback for, you know, for this commitment, not a short term. You know, but at the same time, can you still hear me? It's hard to tell if you can still hear me. Hello?
Yes.
Okay. At the same time, you know, we're not asking for free money. It's a loan, and we'd be willing to pay an interest rate of up to 4%. It says 4% here, but you know, our first mortgage on these projects are usually right around, you know, the 5% or so. So we could even up that to 5%. We don't have a problem with that. So it's not like we're asking for free money. We'd be paying back interest. After 22 years, it'd be a balloon rate where we would, you know, pay the remainder back because we'd be looking for a 30-year AM. So, no, it's something that Florida Housing requires. If the city wants to build affordable housing in St. Cloud, I promise you this is the best option they're going to get. And this is a Florida Housing requirement, not our requirement.
Okay.
Thank you.
Member Matheny.
Thank you. So this is, I know we've talked about this thing a million times, but this is senior affordable housing, correct? It's like a senior, and it was related, I think when this first came to us, it was something similar to what's in Kissimmee near the Turnpike. Is that what?
That is correct. Those are both of our projects. That's Madison Crossing Phase 1 and Phase 2. And this is slated to be an almost identical type of project. So
my concern that I give everybody, so you'll just be in the group with everyone else, is, you know, I like senior affordable housing, of course. And, you know, especially if we can have kind of that assisted living come in as well, it would be a great partnership over in that area. And it's kind of a medical center as well. But I'm concerned about what's it going to look like and what the units are going to look like and what the site is going to look like. And I don't know that we've ever seen anything or tied anything to an approval. And maybe that's more of a council thing than the DSD, but that's something that one in Kissimmee seems to me is like a little plain on the outside, and just kind of wondering what kind of product we're going to get for this development.
I have a PowerPoint with some pictures and a diagram of the site plan. Is it possible to get that on? Normally in Zoom I can share my folder, but I don't have that option with the way that you guys have this set up here that I can find. Let me see. Oh, there we go.
There you go.
I don't have control of this, though, do I? Let's see.
So do you want to see there's some pictures in there.
Elevations.
Well, why don't we, if we start with the site plan, can you put the site plan back right there? There you go. So what you're looking at is tracks 4 and 5 together. Again, this will be a 2-phase development, hopefully when we're all done. Right now, we're just applying for the single phase. Each one generally, depending on as we get closer to our application due date and we have the pricing on our tax credits. But generally, this would be anywhere from 80 to 86 units per building is what we're looking at here. Because of the proximity of these sites, tracks 4 and 5, we can have shared amenities in the middle. And this is very, very similar to the project we're building in Orange County right now. And then if you want to go to some of the photos, could you go down to some of the photos? So the first one there. So again, this is Madison Crossing Phase 1 and Phase 2. You can see we have a 30-foot high tile mosaic that we have an artist in Miami design for each project. What you're looking at there is, you have kind of a sunrise, sunset that was coordinated on these buildings. We have other projects we just built in downtown Clearwater, where our tile mosaic is made of we have very kind of like an aquarium type of design, and we'll coordinate that with the city of St. Cloud. Our artists will touch base, and for the building that we would build here would be coordinated to something that relates to St. Cloud. If you want to scroll down to a couple more pictures, these are 7-story high rises. We offer a ton of amenities for affordable housing. If you go to the pool decks, they all have very, very nice pool decks. The amenities. We actually stopped doing the shuffleboard courts for our elderly. We're doing bocce ball courts now. You can look at some of the inside interior pictures. We always have a nice, we call it the grand parlor. We have this what you're looking at there is our activity room, which is highly used. We have billiards rooms, game rooms. The ones over at Madison Crossing, we have theater rooms in each of them. And then the exercise facilities are pretty small over there, just because of the demand for them is not as great as you would imagine, like in a market rate type development. And that's it. And I can, of course, I could send you additional photos upon request if you want to see them at the city council meeting. Our interior units are very nice. They all have, they're all tiled in the kitchen and bathrooms. I could just, again, I could provide that for you if you'd like to see what the interior, or if you would like a tour of Madison Crossing, you can see the units for yourselves. I'd be more than happy to take you over there.
Member Matheny, do you have any?
No, that's it.
Member Trace.
I guess my only apprehension with this, the lot move itself, is it does move it a little closer to residential, and this is a 7-story building, so that's a concern. But I think the landfill is even taller than this would be, so it's right next to it, so it is what it is. I guess with this, so it's not because there's we have to act this group has to act as city council for the loan aspect of it. So I guess I'm fine with reinstating this agreement to the other 2 lots, track 4 and 5. I just would give us like a 60-day approval to get a term sheet agreed to by city council for that loan, because so if that doesn't happen, then this contract would go away. So we're not on the hook till June of 21.
Madam Clerk, is there anyone in the chamber to speak to this item?
We have no one in the chamber at this time.
And this is Stacy again. If you'd like to put, we could actually amend that contract if you'd like, and just have it so that, and we're fine either way. We don't have to submit our contract until November 5th. So, we're okay with waiting until after the city council meeting to have it signed. Or if you wanted to put something in there to make it contingent, that's fine too. However you want to handle it, this is okay with us.
Okay. Member Trace, do you have anything else?
And then, other than your odds getting a little bit better by the state giving at least 3 of these to groups that have the local funding, is there anything else that changed with the application to up the chances?
No, there's nothing else we can do as an applicant to increase the chances. Just put it in a good app, make sure that it's solid, make sure it conforms to all Florida Housing's requirements for their RFAs, and and then wait and see what happens.
Okay, so this isn't like the NBA lottery where you lose 3 times and you get a draft pick.
Yeah, well, what they've done is by, we didn't make it last year, so they kind of have done that by, increasing the odds for us this year. So they have put that in place this year.
Okay. That's good. Yeah. So I guess I'd like to make a motion to approve resolution 2020 010R, but adding like a 60-day period for city council to approve that loan document, application or whatever we need to do on the city council side, or else the contract terminates.
Mr. Mayor.
Yes, Member Cooper.
Thank you. I had, my light was off to go ahead and
Sorry about that.
That's all right, not a problem. This is, construction is going to be all wood construction, as I would assume.
No, sir. No, this is post-tension concrete. It's a 7-story mid-rise building.
Okay, so it's all concrete?
Yes, sir.
Okay. That's it. Thank you.
Then thank you very much. We have a motion from Member Trace, a second from Member Askew. Madam Clerk, you call the roll.
Member Cooper?
Nay.
Member Askew?
Aye.
Member Trace?
Aye.
Vice Chair Matheny?
Aye.
Chair Blackwell?
Aye.
Motion carries 4-1.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you. We sure would like to see this project move forward. Brings us to item number 9. Madam Clerk. I can read that. The scheduling of the next dependent special district meeting.
And we put this on the agenda because, as we mentioned earlier, we are anticipating some letters of intent with regard to these other pieces at the corporate campus. And so we wanted to make sure that we talk to the council. We know your schedule is going to be very busy in September. And so we're hoping that we can probably circle back sometime in late September or early October for your next meeting, and would entertain any thoughts about whether you want to do it as part of your second council meeting in September before that meeting, or whether you want to have a special day maybe for the first week of October to have a DSD only meeting.
Member Trace, are you want to speak to this?
Oh, sorry, I didn't realize it was unmuted. I'm fine with having this before any council meeting we have, especially if it's like one simple LOI. We can get that done in 30 minutes before. This we had actually 5 or 6, 7 good things on here, and it only took an hour and a half, 2.5, 2 hours.
Right now, I think, as you can see, that we're starting to get a lot more of this stuff on the contract. So really, the only properties that are left now are track 6, track 8A at the corporate campus, and then 4 and 1 at the retail site. So I don't anticipate anything on 1 and 4 happening in the next 30 days. We do anticipate something happening on track 6 and 8A, and therefore that would probably be the only item would be on the next agenda. So we probably could get it done before the second council meeting in September.
Well, that will certainly be my preference. Are there any objections to that by anyone on the council or board? Then I think we have consensus to move forward with that, having it on the night of a council meeting.
Thank you.
I just wanted to note that would be September 24th.
September 24th. I see nothing else on our agenda unless somebody has something you just need to bring up. Ms. Matheny?
Well, I was saving it for the end, but the guy earlier messed me up. But I wanted to wish you a very, very, very happy birthday. My birthday was last Friday, so we almost are exactly the same birthday time, but I hope you have a great year, and you're a wonderful mayor, and happy birthday.
Well, thank you very much. I can't think of a better way to spend my birthday than at a DSD meeting. Thank you. Happy birthday. I appreciate it.
Mine was the 14th.
Oh, really? Good month, huh?
All the cool kids are in August.
All right. With that, we will now be adjourned. Thank all of you so much for your patience and your participation tonight.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor.
Good night, everyone.
Good night.